Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. It's been confirmed Derek Chisora will square off against Artur Szpilka on July 20th on the Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas undercard. And this is a fight that has sort of divided fans to some extent. I've seen a lot of chat online, some who like it. I'm more in that camp. But there's been some who've been like, well, what's the point? It's a bit of a pointless fight. And so I want to talk about why this is actually crucial for both of these guys in the heavyweight division. I want to talk about what this means for their relevancy, but also what does it add to the card? I'll get to that, and some thoughts on the fight itself. But starting with Derek Chisora and Artur Szpilka, the matchup, I actually like it. In this day and age of the heavyweight division, where we're not really given too many sort of competitive fights, this does actually shape as a relatively competitive fight. I think off the bat here, I would have Derek Chisora as a favourite. He's got a record of 30 wins, 9 losses. Artur Szpilka got a record of 22 and 3 losses. It's a case where both these guys are effectively nearly men in the division. They've had their ups and downs in their careers. They've fought some good opposition at times. Haven't always sort of come out of that on the right side of the ledger. Chisora facing Vitaly Klitschko back in 2012. Artur Szpilka facing Deontay Wilder, what was it, back in 2015, I want to say. Both failed title challenges. Chisora, obviously, the 9 losses, that sort of sticks out, but you look at the opposition, he's come up short against some of the better names in the heavyweight division. But this fight in itself, it does represent a sort of chance to maintain and hold on to some relevancy within the division, to remain as, proper fringe contenders, guys who are only ever one or so fights away from a big fight. Whereas, the loser, because I actually believe both these guys have seen better days. And that may sound a little bit strange for a guy like Artur Szpilka, who's only 30 years old. But I don't think he looks as good as he did back in, say 2015. Some of his fights since, he hasn't looked great. Didn't look great against Adam Kovnarski. Seemed to take him lightly, backing up with his hands down, got caught and taken out. Even in that fight against Mariusz Wok, which was, the end of 2018, very close fight. I mean, Wok has clearly been fading for a while on the slide. Artur Szpilka made a very hard work of that, and it's debatable if he actually won. It was a split decision win to him. He was dropped late in that fight. Mariusz Wok has been trying to get the rematch. He's been saying, look, I won that fight. You need to give me the rematch, but it hasn't come. And some people agree with Wok that they thought he won that fight. And given Mariusz Wok is clearly on the decline now, I mean, you have to ask, well, how much does Szpilka have left? But also, Derek Chisora, he feels like he's been around forever and a day. And he kind of has, and he's listed at 35 years old now. Obviously, he's got over 40 fights under his belt, 30 wins, 9 losses, against some of the better opposition. But I do think he's been slowing down, that he's not as good as he used to be. Obviously, coming off a brutal knockout at the end of 2018 to Dillian Whyte. But that was a fight in which, for many rounds, he was, controlling the action. He was looking good. His volume and pressure was really giving Whyte some challenges. Whyte didn't necessarily look good or all that good, backing up and sort of working off the back foot. But Derek Chisora ultimately tired, and Dillian Whyte found an opportunity to stop him late in that fight. And that was a fight he was still up on the cards at the time of the stoppage. So clearly he's got something left. Szpilka's got that controversial win to some extent over Mariusz Wok. Clearly he's got something left as well. But how much both have left? Well, we will see in this fight. But for both these guys, if they want to continue to get, decent fights, decent paydays, and not be relegated to also-rans and flat-out journeymen, they have to win. Whoever wins this will remain as a fringe contender. And I actually have Derek Chisora sort of starting as a favourite in this one. But Artur Szpilka, if he can box smart, and he is a very decent boxer, he could outbox Derek Chisora, but can he handle the pressure? And that's part of the sort of predicament here for Artur Szpilka. We've seen him recently, a year and a half ago or so, against Adam Kovnarski, didn't handle that pressure so well. Got taken out in, I think it was 4 rounds. Derek Chisora is a guy like Kovnatski is going to be coming forward. He'll be throwing, quite a few punches. He'll be looking to back Artur Szpilka up onto the ropes if he can. He will be looking to try put it on Szpilka when he gets the opportunity. And Szpilka himself will be looking to pick up rounds on the back of his activity through his boxing, and he'll look to outbox Derek Chisora. Easier said than done, just, especially as the rounds drag on. But this is one where I think Derek Chisora, and now we're getting to some of how I think the fight will play out. I think this could be a case where Szpilka is going to look good early on, but Derek Chisora will start grinding him down and potentially wear him down and maybe even stop him. It's just my early sort of thoughts on it. But Artur Szpilka certainly could box his way to a decision. But whoever wins this does have a chance to stay relevant, does have a chance to stay in the mix for decent fights. And we know Derek Chisora puts a premium on his purses, and he won't be coming totally cheap for this undercard. So if he wants to continue getting paid the sort of money that he's expecting and has been getting, he's got to keep winning. And to get into any other big fights, a win is a must. And for Artur Szpilka, he's kind of been out in a little bit in the wilderness for the past couple of years. Since that brutal knockout against Deontay Wilder, hasn't really had too many fights. He had that loss against Adam Kovnatski. It was straight after the Deontay Wilder fight, but there was effectively a year and a half between those fights, so it was back-to-back losses. He had a bounce-back win against Dominic Gwynn, and then obviously the narrow win over Mariusz Wach. Didn't look fantastic in that fight, but he was still able to box his way to a decision, although getting dropped late in that fight. So maybe his durability is a question, but he will come in the slightly taller man. The reach, it's about the same, an inch or two in Szpilka's favour. But I think, he will be looking to utilise movement, utilise his boxing skills, and trying to outbox Derek Chisora. I think the formula for him is that simple. It's more likely he's going to box to a decision rather than stopping Chisora, who I think Chisora, his best chance in this fight is probably trying to wear down and wear out Artur Szpilka. Could he get a decision? Yeah, it's possible, but I think if it's, skill for skill, I think Artur Szpilka will have enough to win rounds if it comes down to just a sheer boxing competition between the two. But in terms of the card itself, this is the third heavyweight fight that will be on it. So obviously we have Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas at the top of the bill. That's a very good competitive fight. And then you have Dave Allen and David Price also on the bill. Actually, that's a pretty competitive fight too on paper. All of these fights are relatively competitive on paper. People are going to be going back and forth over who they think they will win these fights. And it sort of reminds me of the card that Dillian Whyte had in July of last year, where you had Joseph Parker facing Dillian Whyte, a competitive fight. You had a number of other heavyweight fights on there, including Dave Allen. He was also on that card. And that ended up being one of the most entertaining cards of the year. It was knockouts galore. There was some great heavyweight action. And I think what Eddie Hearn is looking to do is sort of replicate that sort of success, because there has been, fans have been questioning and quibbling a little bit about, is this really pay-per-view? Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas, is it really at that sort of standard? And Dillian Whyte's been on pay-per-view for his past few fights. Joseph Parker and then Derek Chisora, the rematch back in December. So it's one of these cases, they're not going to drop him down to free TV now. He's got expectations about the sort of money he's going to be getting. And to sort of, pay for that, it has to be pay-per-view. But if there is a question about the fight itself, is this something that should be pay-per-view? Well, you have to stack the undercard. And I think this is what they're doing here. And it's not like they're the best of the best fighting each other, but it's competitive fights. And this is actually what I'd like to see on cards. So Dave Allen and David Price, have seen a lot of chat where, people can go either way on that. And I'm sure with Szpilka and Chisora, people will be debating who's going to win that one. Maybe there'll be, more people sort of siding on the Chisora end of town there. But Dillian Whyte and Oscar Rivas. Rivas could totally win that fight. And you also have Richard Riekpour. He's a cruiserweight facing Chris Billum-Smith. So that could also be a good fight. So there is a number of good fights here that sort of, the card, it's a good card. Is it pay-per-view worthy? Well, they are beefing it up to try and make it a bit stronger. And I like that. I like to see cards where the whole bill is looking like it's going to be decent fights, as opposed to one good fight at the top, and then you have a couple of names facing nobodies, which is, tune-up fights, all that sort of stuff. That it feels like we get into a constant rut of that sort of cycle. So I do like these cards where it is, and I'm happy to pay for those sorts of cards where there is actually a lot of sort of close to 50-50 fights on it. So I do think this fight is a very good addition to the card. What do you make of Artur Szpilka and Derek Chisora? How vital is it for their careers, for the winner to come through this? What can they do from there? I think the loser, it's a long way back, but obviously if you get the win here, you're not going to have to worry about that. You'll be on to the next one. Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe, follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.